What's up, skate fam? Welcome to Deez Skates. I'm your host, David Laliette. In this episode, I want to discuss the technology that goes into different skate setups. Lately, we've all been seeing skating blow up bigger than seemingly it's ever been with beginners. And it's interesting that the current environment has made so many skate shops sell out of quad roller skates and inline skates, especially considering so many ice rinks are still closed and many figure skaters and hockey players want to keep training. So they're turning to the quad and inline skate designs to keep their training up to par. I was discussing recently with the owner of the Endless Blading Company what we could do to get more quad skaters to try inline skates. And in this conversation, he asked me to explain to him just how quad skating technology works, which companies are the biggest, and what really sells to quad skaters. And in the process of this discussion, we got on the topic of customization when it comes to swapping parts and just how that works in the quad skating industry versus how it works in the inline skating industry. And he was very surprised to find that in quad skating, we're generally reliant on a technician to swap the plates anytime we want to make changes. So usually if a quad skater wants to get a new skate, they're going to buy a full package, a boot, a plate with all of the parts that make up the plate, like the cushions, trucks. Especially if they have a custom setup that they want, they have to take those parts to a skate shop, and the owner will use a tool to measure the center line of the boot and then mount the plate onto the boot using a drill and bolts. Unfortunately, there seems to be no standard for quad skating manufacturing. So each company will manufacture its own type of plate. If you want to buy the plate of another company and replace the one that you currently have while keeping the same boot, you'll likely have to take your skate package to a shop and have them remove the plate, measure the center line again, and drill new holes. This creates a lot of work and costs a lot of extra time and money in comparison to how an inline skate works. If you want to customize an inline skate, say you want to swap frames, all you have to do is make sure that you know which mount system that your skate boot is designed for, and then buy a frame that is within that mount system, unbolt it, center it, bolt it back on, and boom, you, the customer, have control over the customization of your setup. Unfortunately, this is not so prominent in quad skating. Coming from a quad skating background, I never really considered that it was that big of a deal because quads have been something that I've done my entire life. And that's just how it's always been since I started skating in the mid-80s. Now that I'm talking to more inline skaters, gathering more input and more perspectives from them, it seems really clear to me that maybe a serious problem with quad skating is that designing a quad skate, finding the right setup, and not knowing how to customize and get exactly what you want may be something that is steering people away from quad skating into the realm of inline skating. I don't know that that's true, but it just got me wondering if that was a thing. So I asked my friend, the Aussie Inline skater, what his input was. Here's what he had to say.
G'day folks, it's the Aussie Inline skater here. And if you haven't guessed by the obvious name and accent, I'm an Australian inline skater. So David asks, given my current knowledge of quad skate tech, how do I view that in comparison to inline skate tech? And that's a good question. So excluding wheels, which could be a topic amongst itself individually, Let's start with the low end. And from my perspective, it looks like they're constructed with plastic frames and shoes. See, if I was a new coming skater looking to get into the sport, I'd be wanting to spend the minimal amount of money possible. So that would either be buying secondhand or buying an entry-level skate. Now in the quad end, you would be investing in a low quality boot with plastic base plate. And this would, in my assumption, lead to a very poor skating experience. And the customer would assume that that's just how quad skating is. In the low end of the inline market, you can get a decent quality plastic boot with a basic liner and a metal frame for a very low price. And that'll lead to a particularly pleasant skating experience. Maybe not the most comfortable, but a pleasant skating experience in terms of the way an inline skate feels. However, when you go into the high end, that's where things get interesting. But first, I got this downhill to do. So quads are really interesting in the high end. I've seen an array of super duper high end quad skates, particularly from, say, I can't think of the name off of my head, but they make a Solaris boot, and Bont's an Aussie brand. They make base plates made out of titanium and CNC parts and stuff, and that's really, really good for ultra precise skating, but it does bump up the cost significantly. So if you're super hardcore into the quad realm, having those options is really nice because you can flex your cool factor to your fellow skater friends and go, hey, look what I got. How sick are these? That is prevalent on the inline end, but most inline skates are medium to high end anyway. So following on from that, to summarize the question, how do I view quad skate tech compared to inline skate tech? I feel quads are sort of stuck back in the 70s, kinda. There's some twists to that information. So take, for example, manufacturing processes are much, much better nowadays. The quality of the products is much better nowadays. And quads are actually investing in materials that I don't see in inline skates. Take, for example, quad base plates made out of CNC titanium. That's pretty fat. I don't know of any inline skate frames that are made of titanium. In saying that though, the lack of interchangeable parts, easily interchangeable parts, sort of throws me off of quad skate tech a little bit.
Unfortunately, my friend here is not the only inline skater that has expressed these same concerns about getting into quad skating. And you guys know that my whole shtick with this channel is to get as many of us as possible skating in as many different mediums as possible. Just like I want quad skaters to get into inline skating, I also want that to feed both ways. I think that the best thing that any of us can do for our skill and our appreciation of the sport of skating is to try as much as we possibly can and learn to appreciate the things that other skaters are involved in and enjoy. I don't mean for it to sound like I think that quad skating is just boring. Like I said, that's where I come from. So it's mainly what I consider myself, first and foremost, is a quad skater. And I appreciate how far the technology has come from the early days when, say, Gene Kelly was tap dancing in strap-on metal wheeled skates until now. And I also appreciate the roller derby camp, which has pushed skating technology in the quad realm in a really good direction as far as having new gear regularly since the early 2000s till now. But my main concern is, as we, the skaters, begin to experiment with each other's versions of skating more, I'm somewhat afraid that quad skating may fall by the wayside in comparison to inline skating. Once people learn that there's no standard, there's no easy standard where the customer can pick up the equipment that they want and customize their experience on the go themselves. Kaya, which is the quad skating branch of the inline skate company Powerslide, attempted to standardize a quad skating mount in a similar way that inline skates are standardized. See, the difference is, with inline skates, you can unbolt your frame here and just swap another one. You can also shift it in the way that you like the skate to feel. So it can be moved forward, backward, left, right. I know that with quad skates, this is not as practical, but I seriously wonder why the Kaya attempt to standardize this type of mount on quad skates failed seemingly so hard. Here's an example of a standard quad plate mount. On mine, I have 6 bolts, 2 in the front on each side and 1 in the back on each side. With a standard quad mount, the center of the axle sits directly under the heel in the back, and the center of the axle in the front sits directly under the ball of the foot. With inline skating, there's not really such a standard. Most frames of similar type are generally the same length. Some frame sizes are different depending on the size of the foot, but for the most part, you'll have 5 to 7 different boot sizes that will fit with one frame size. And this changes the experience for skaters. So given that, tell me in the comments, please, how can the quad skating industry more effectively standardize the matching of plate to boot so that the user or the skater can have a similar level of customization that's so widely enjoyed by many, many inline skaters? That said, I really wondered how many people involved in the skating scene at all, especially the beginners that we market to try and get our scene growing, have a significant desire to even consider how customizable a skate really is. So I had the Aussie Inline skater ask his local shop exactly what their experience was lately with selling skates at a higher rate than normal and how the customer viewed the skate purchasing experience.
My local skate shop informs me that most customers they have come through they don't really care about interchangeable parts and stuff. They want to get a nice pair of skates, go out and skate the hell out of them and have a lot of fun. But for someone like myself who likes that customizability, wants to experiment with new things and sort of get a feel and try and dial in the ideal setup, that's a little harder on the quad platform. It's sort of when you buy a setup, either that you build or buy pre-built, it's sort of that's what it is, deal with it, and you're stuck with that, and changing that makes it's a little bit more difficult. It's not impossible, it can very much well be done, but it's a little bit more difficult. Whereas on the inline skate platform, for me, customizability is really good. There's some low-end parts on the market and there's some high-end parts on the market, but it's easy. I think inline skate tech's come a long way in the last 10 years, both in innovation and manufacturing quality. One of my most favorite products I've purchased recently actually are these Flying Eagle Drift rockable frames. For those of you that watch my channel, you've seen them on my Adapt Hyper skates. They're on these Zebra Trick skates here. And what I really like about them is I can run them flat or I can rocker them. Change the skate that they're on, and that changes the way the entire skate feels. Change it from flat to rocker, and again, that changes the way the skate feels. So just by this one frame and 2 boots, I've essentially got 4 different skating setups, and changing the frame between the 2 of them is super easy. So I'll hand it back to you, David. Thanks for featuring me on your channel. It's been a pleasure. And yeah.
Is there really not a way for quad skating companies to create a more customizable standard so that those of us who have more experience in our skates and with the technology we're using and want to be able to change different plates, and just like we change wheels, and try new setups at the snap of a finger, is there really not a way that these companies can standardize that? Is it really not profitable for companies to create or put in the time to create a standard? I also, again, want skaters to try each other's medium. I want inline skaters to be interested enough and not feel threatened by the idea of choosing a pair of quad skates to try out.
The interest in quad skates is picking up within the skating community here in southeast Queensland, Australia. Most inquiries are people returning to quads for nostalgia or to have a creative outlet, that being dance. I really only see 3 main types of quad skate variations on the market. We've got derby, park, and dance. That being said, I'm primarily skating outdoors 90% of the time, whilst doing majority of my skating, both on and off camera, in the urban concrete jungle, Brisbane. Brisbane's the capital city of Queensland. Brisbane presents a plethora of challenges to your skating: surface materials, topography, cracks, and rough pavement. Those familiar with Brisbane will know of its great many hills, some of which are very intimidating, even to a seasoned inline skater like myself. Of all the quad skaters I've encountered in person that joined me in a city flow, they've given me a false impression of what quad skating can be. I've seen quad skaters stumbling on cracks in pavement that would not faze the inline platform, as well as quad skaters struggling to navigate down Brisbane's steep hills as they battle out the balance between speed and agility. Following from that, the lack of a stable way to stop without easily tripping up have left a grey area for me in the world of quad. To me, the quad skate platform looks really cool. I particularly fancy the Bont Park Star in black. Partner that with some aluminium hub wheels bolted to the Bont Infinity NTS titanium speed plates, and I think that's a pretty fat looking skate. Where I do see the quad platform excelling, however, are small flatland spaces such as tennis courts and skate rinks. The likelihood of climbing descent and accumulating a large amount of potential energy doesn't exist on a smooth, flat piece of ground. I also think they'd feel a lot smoother with tight, low-speed maneuvers. The inherent design would make low-speed turning very smooth. Following from that though, I like doing things on inline skates that defy common logic. The power stop is one of my most favourite things to do on inline skates. I'd compare it to driving a car and locking up the wheels to come to a stop. Not a wise thing to do as a motorist, but as a skater it makes you feel pretty cool, knowing that's something many people don't get to see or experience. Adding to that, I do dream of a world that was much like it was 30, 40, 50 maybe 50 years ago, where you'd go to a cafe or a restaurant and the wait staff would serve you on quad skates. How cool will it be to go to a restaurant and order a meal and have the wait attendant come out to you at lightning fast speed and go, "Here's your food, mate, enjoy," and then just vanish as quick as they came. that would be a pretty cool world. Not something that you could do on inline skates particularly fluidly in such a tight, closed environment, but the quad skate platform would really cater for that. It did so in the past. As to why that's not happening anymore, that's a different story.
So there you have it, folks. Both camps of skaters seem to understand that each of our medium has its own purpose, its own place within the skating community. But again, I think it's very important that we give skate manufacturers something to consider, that there may be a good handful of potential skaters who are already skilled in their own medium that might come and try this new side of the market. But how can we do that without being willing to have the conversation surrounding the standard or the lack thereof when it comes to customization and the ability of the customer to have more control over their purpose and to experience new and to test new setups? Think about how much more money the quad skating industry might bring in and how much bigger the scene could grow if the customer who was dedicated to skating was able to swap their plate out as easily as they can change their wheels and bearings on their own. Wouldn't that be cool? Isn't that something that you guys would want to see? Tell me, if you're an inline skater, would you be more likely to try quad skates if there were more customization between the boot and the frame that was in your control? And quad skaters, tell me, would you be more likely to buy multiple plates and skate them on different occasions, or just try them for the heck of it? If you had the ability to customize your skate on your own, I know that I certainly would be. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate your support. I hope that this is a topic that more of us will start discussing, and I also hope it's a topic that the leaders of the skate industry will pick up on one day and see just how much it could help increase the rate that skating technology grows in our world today. Thanks for joining me today, Skate Fam. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this video and you feel like you got some value from it, you learned something, it made you think about a new idea, please scroll down, click the like button, make sure you're subscribed to Deez Skates. I'm gonna have a review coming of a set of frames from the Endless Blading Company not too far in the future. And I want you to see what I have to say on that. So again, thanks so much for coming. Make sure to subscribe and click the bell, and I will see you the next time I lace up.